have a distorted system.
It's the question mark between get health care and profit. That's what we need to work on eliminating.
Well, and I think we could use the business model that we can look at is veterinary medical care, plastic surgery, eye laser surgery, those things where the costs keep coming down year after year. Technology is improving. The customer makes decisions, and the customer and the doctor are very close to one another. They make financial decisions and care decisions. And it's because there really isn't that not so invisible hand of the government in the middle of things. And it's not and it's not scary, totally unregulated. You know, plastic surgeons are quite heavily regulated by the government, and their procedures have to be safe, and you can sue them if things go wrong. It's just that because they're voluntary decisions, the doctors have to compete for your business. So they provide more and better services every year at lower and better prices, and that's free market healthcare.
Yeah, I think you're seeing it with concierge healthcare, and you're seeing a lot of innovation now because people are forced to do it because otherwise, the way Obamacare is structured, there's no way we can afford this overburdensome system anymore. And so in that sense, I'm actually kind of optimistic. I think this is a chance for conservatives to show, look, we can develop a free market system that will give poor people, middle class, wealthy people all more choice, and at the same time, hopefully reduce costs in ways that we haven't even thought of yet, mainly because government has been restricting us from doing these things. And so I think this is a moment for conservatives to really step up and provide plans. And I think the GOP really does understand this. I think in small ways they're looking at how can we, with Obama still in power for 2 more years, how can we make small shifts in this program to slowly move us away from this disaster. They're looking at how to roll back the mandates, looking at how to roll back certain taxes. All these things, they seem small, in the short run, but long term, what we're slowly doing is pointing the whole system away from a government-centric, monopoly where Medicare and Medicaid really dictate what we do, and move it more to a personal choice issue, which is where conservatives really should be anyway.
Well, we've had a lot of conversations at my workplace because our insurance plans are being overhauled too. Not nearly as much as Ryan's, but one of the things that I've found to be really effective as far as talking about choices is, why does health insurance have to be tied to your company? Why can't you decide whatever kind of plan that you had? If you really like working with United Healthcare and that's always worked with you, but you decide to leave your company, why can't you take that with you? Just like the car insurance idea. Why do I have to have insurance that's decided for me by my company? Why can't I just go out and buy health insurance the same way I buy car insurance? I can buy what I need, I can afford for what I'm going to use. And it's been really interesting because I have coworkers from all different backgrounds, and a couple of them have shut me down, but then they've come back later and they're like, that made a lot of sense. I really think that's a good idea. And the other thing that they've all started talking about is health savings accounts. Because they're like, well, if we could have had health savings accounts back when we were in our 20s and we never used insurance, I could have $100,000 in my health insurance plan, or my health savings account now that it's been 20 years later, and then I wouldn't really need as much insurance. So it's been a really, really good conversation starter, and they're thinking about it totally differently.
And this is where I think we can use a kind of a rope-a-dope strategy. And Pradheep is right. Over the next 2 years, Obamacare is not going to get repealed, period. Obama's never going to let that happen, and he's still the president. So talking about and getting mad at GOP elected officials who don't want to insist upon repeal and yet are working towards modifying it over the next 2 years, that's really a bad strategy. We need to be modifying it over the next 2 years and making it as harmless as we possibly can. And oddly, I do think that not allowing the employer mandate, but allowing things that convince employers to not insure their employees is actually ultimately a good thing. Yes, it ultimately ends up putting everybody into Obamacare, but Obamacare is so bad, and the ability to get out of the exemptions from the fines are so easy to claim that a lot of people will, I think, very quickly realize, oh, my employer isn't providing insurance anymore. So that employer is now saving a ton of money by being able to focus on the work they do rather than health insurance for their employees. And the employee or the individual blows off Obamacare and says, well, if they want to fine me, they can fine me, but I've set up my tax structure so that I don't get a refund that they would garnish anyway, so to heck with Obamacare. I'm going to go out on this free market because there have been entrepreneurs out there creating this concierge service that originally started being something only for rich people, but now they're realizing the market is huge of it. Middle market, middle income people that can now afford concierge doctors, and then that becomes an even bigger market, and it pushes it down further and further to even low income people would then be able to afford this concierge care. And all of a sudden, even though Obamacare is still intact legally, employers aren't providing insurance, but no, we did not go single payer in America, and we went free market instead. We said you can take your Obamacare, healthcare.gov single payer requirements. We've found a way around those fines, and we're going to Walmart Care because it's better, or Target Care and all of the clinics that are on the street. I think we can get there or get there close enough within the next couple of years that then repealing Obamacare becomes just kind of acknowledging the fact that it's already dead.
Well, and there's a huge advantage to picking it apart piece by piece as well, just in terms of marketing our actions. When you try to take down the whole thing, keep in mind,
You hate poor people. You want poor people to die.
Well, there's that, but also it's 2,700 pages complicated, and people don't understand the pain of all of 20, 30, 40 different aspects at once. When you go target one thing, you can say, okay, right now we're targeting this one thing because of the pain it is causing these people. Look at the pain this one aspect is causing these people. And people are like, that's easy to sell. People can get their minds around that. They can get their hearts around that and say, well, yeah, something should be done about that. Oh, okay, well, you pick apart that. Now, look at the pain this is causing these people. You can't go after the pain of 30 things. You can go after the pain of each thing, and people will feel that.
That's a huge point, and that's something that a lot of us on the conservative side of things, especially, need to keep in mind, is that fact that this is exactly what the left does, is they pick a certain thing, they pick one thing, and they beat the living daylights out of it, and they make it evil, they make it toxic, and it works for them. We can do that same thing here, and there are plenty of items in Obamacare that we could rattle off here that absolutely could be singled out as a cancer, and make sure that we focus on them. I think that's something that we could totally do.
And I think there's a way. The concern for all of us here is understanding that our own conservative allies are going to call us rhinos because we're arguing in favor of reform rather than repeal. And we're actually arguing in favor of reform now, repeal later. So we're just focusing on reform now. So we have to remember to keep to back each other's play on some of this stuff. And I think one of our arguments to try to pull the repeal only folks onto our side is to explain to them what JD just said was a pure Alinsky tactic. Pick the target, freeze it, polarize it, whatever. I don't remember all of the Alinsky stuff was, but that's a pure Alinsky target. And the conservative warriors who are repeal only will love the fact that we're using an Alinsky tactic to accomplish our goals.
And one thing that you can tell them, before I reel off why our way is better and they're wrong, I first want to relate to them and say, look, I understand. Well, I'm not saying that we weren't doing that. I'm just jumping back a sec. I want to look at them and say, look, I understand your concern. You're concerned that the longer we leave any of these pieces, all these other pieces in place, the more ingrained they will become in the conscience of the American people, the more they will become addicted, hooked, and we'll never get them off it. I got news for you. That hasn't been happening this time. Okay? We are now a couple years into Obamacare. The worst parts are still to come, and it has sunk even lower in the public mind. It isn't happening this time as it has with past entitlements, not in the same way. We can, and so let's take advantage of the complexity of this bill. What they've done is served us up a buffet of one by one by one by one things that we can show the heartlessness of the left. Why do it all at once? Why spoil the fun? Oh my goodness, no, 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 no. I want a little of this. I want that. No, not too fast. I want to enjoy this. This is like a good Jack Nicholson movie. This has to happen piece by piece by piece. I have to enjoy this, and I want them to feel I want the left, and I'll finish with this. I want them to feel every moment of pain that I want to inflict on them with this. I used to think it all had to be gotten rid of immediately, too. I've been really, honestly stunned by how that has become not the case. Pick it apart piece by piece, and then in the end, when you flush the whole thing, it'll be triumphant.
When you're looking at the political situation, we have to acknowledge the political situation in order to get to deal with the fiscal issues and the coverage issues and the bankruptcy issues people had before other kinds of plans came in and other things were supplementing them. We have to look at that political ground, and by looking at it as though you can't catch the Republicans in that sort of strategy that you're talking about. You can't catch them trying to pull things out root and branch and everything. You can only catch them if they're smart, if we hold the coalition together over this, and if we don't end up fighting over it's not big enough of a change. You can only catch Republicans saying, we're trying to help, we're trying to fix all these problems because this bill was rushed through and it wasn't properly read. Nobody understood how it was going to work except people like Gruber who did it on purpose. Now we're trying to unpick some of the damage and take pieces of it that are flawed and perfect them and make them better and whatever. Then that's the maneuvering for 2 years plus that you do until you have gained the trust of the American people who see Republicans working on solutions over the 2 years and not being able to be charged with, trying to destroy and dismantle this great thing. The few people that still believe it's a great thing have seen the president do for people. It doesn't give the liberals that ammunition or that room to maneuver, and that's what I like about it.
In the chat, Rob brought up the idea that maybe by removing the more toxic elements that what is left behind will be harder to remove because it's less toxic. I don't think that's the case. There's going to be enough reason to repeal the rest of Obamacare because hopefully the Republicans will come up. I mean, we have a bunch of plans already, but hopefully by the time 2016 rolls around and we have a Republican president in 2017, hopefully by that point we'll have a Republican solution to healthcare, be it any of the systems that we talked about just before about enabling free market healthcare coverage, or by going into the accounts, the funds. There's going to be enough reason to repeal the rest of Obamacare once the toxic bits are removed.
I think, too, one thing to be looking out for is stories of people who have coverage now that didn't have it before, who now have only coverage and no health care, no actual care. involved. I think stories like that are going to come out. We don't know how this works for people who have coverage